Welcome to the Sport Northwest News Podcast. Today with myself, Elliot Hughes. We've also got Nathan Fay, Toby Francis, Jack Hughes, and Luke Harris. We'll get straight into it. We'll start in the Premier League. Just a few weeks ago, Everton's season looked a perilous task. Deducted 10 points for the financial fair play and sent crashing to the bottom of the table. But now it seems everything has already changed. Yesterday, they secured their third successive Premier League victory. A feat they haven't achieved since 2021, a big 2-0 home win against Chelsea, and before that as well, a win over Newcastle. They haven't conceded in either of those two games either. What is the reason for that change in form? Nathan, we'll start with you.
I was at the Newcastle game, and I think he's got the shape of the team right. He's got the squad 1-11, the match day squad perfect. The back line at the moment, I think Ashley Young and Seamus Coleman returned from injury. It's the team's got a good spine and they play good football, and they're out playing teams now. Whereas Everton of maybe 2 months ago, they wouldn't have outplayed teams.
Jack, anything to add from you?
Yeah, I think there's a few factors. I feel like that with the points deduction, I think it's almost given them an extra fire in their gut, which you'd expect it to demotivate a team, but with Everton, and we all know their fans are quite passionate, to say the least. The Toffees, it's almost put an extra bit of motivation to start winning and stay in the league. Obviously, Everton have got a great record of never being relegated from the Premier League, and they've also got a manager in Sean Dyche who is well equipped, and he's very, very experienced in terms of this level in the Premier League of being lower down in the table in a relegation battle. So yeah, I think with a combination of the fans and the home games, obviously they're leaving Goodison soon, so that stadium has been renowned to be a horrible away day for the bigger sides. Having Sean Dyche in charge while they're in a relegation battle has also helped as well. And I also think, to be fair, despite the points deduction, they're a good side. I think there's worse teams in the Premier League than them, so there's no reason why they shouldn't stay up. And this run of form is just showing that they have got a start 11 that is more than capable of staying in the league.
Definitely. I mean, with the 10 points added back on, they'd now be in the top half, which is, because there's been this narrative, because Everton haven't been at their best the past few years. There is no secret there. They've been in the relegation scrap for a couple of years now. Last year, a lot of people thought they would go down, managed to steer clear of the drop. But this year they are playing good football. They're getting big results, and a number of them. And as I say, they'd be in the top half of the Premier League right now. I don't think many Everton fans would have expected to have picked up so many points so far this season. So I know the morale around the city, the blue part of the city, is about as high as it's been in a few years now, despite the 10-point deduction. A really interesting interview from Sean Dyche yesterday, actually, said that he's impressed with the way that his teams are winning. Because, when you think Sean Dyche, you think of a certain brand of football. You think of strong players. You think of getting it long and trying to break the other teams down like that. But Everton are playing some good stuff as well. They're scoring some good goals. And, Sean Dyche, as usual, is grinding out results where he's not conceding as well. Not conceding a goal to Newcastle or Chelsea, and then putting 5 goals past them in the combined games. They're onto something, Everton. They're playing about as well as we've seen in a long time. And I agree, Jack. I think that a big part of that is some of the motivation that they seem to have found from that 10-point deduction. It's like the underdog mentality, and they're after the Premier League, and they're gaining points left, right, and centre at the moment. We'll touch on the women's game now, because Everton women also won this week, a 1-0 win over West Ham. Nathan, you've been looking at the women's game in detail over the past few weeks. Has anything stood out to you?
In terms of comparing it to the men's game, a lot of people would write off the women's game, and I think that's unfair. I think the quality is actually quite good. I attended Liverpool versus Manchester United at Prenton Park over in Birkenhead, and just the quality on display it really, really surprised me. And prior to that, I was at Everton versus Manchester City ladies, and just the game as a whole, it's aggressive, it's fast paced, it's exciting. There's good goals, and I think that all comes from the Lionesses, their progress and their success in recent times has fueled that. And the Euro wins specifically, I think young girls in the country now are looking to go and watch these games, and it's bringing these crowds, and it's making the game better. All these people, all the eyes are on the field, more eyes on the field, more views. The game has skyrocketed completely out of proportion in the last couple of years, and that just it's the Lionesses, but also the coaches and all. They're doing a good job. It's a really good spectacle.
Yeah, definitely. And Luke Harris, you went to the Everton versus Chelsea women's game. What else do you have to comment?
I'll just say I think it was my first ever experience of women's football in general, of actually going to one. I think the whole experience is very different to what you usually get at a men's game in a positive way. And I was actually pleasantly surprised by how good some of the football was. It was no different to what you would get if you went to a Premier League men's game, really. The only difference was, I think, the gap in quality between the Everton and Chelsea was massive. But I think that comes down to just like the bench, the finances that the club has. But yeah, I was very impressed by the quality and just the atmosphere there as well. With so many kids there, you can see they're really into it. They're getting into it. I think it's only going to go, as Nathan said, is skyrocketing. It's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
I agree. I actually went yesterday to Prenton Park as well. Liverpool were at home to Bristol City in the league. And there are a few things that really stood out to me. In particular, the way that the whole event seemed to be about getting young people involved in the game as well. I mean, even the stewards, there was a steward, we were sat in the Kop, and one of the stewards was kind of cheering on with young girls, getting them, starting chants for them and creating an environment where they've got role models and they know who to be cheering for. And there's a group of them that get so excited. I mean, You'll Never Walk Alone was on, and all of the cops stood up, their scarves raised, and the sound difference from the men's game where it's largely all the men screaming from the top of their lungs, to hear the young girls' rendition of "You'll Never Walk Alone." It was a really good experience, and as you said, the football's a high standard. Liverpool 5th in the WSL at the moment. They're on a rise, some really good home form this year. But one thing that also stood out in terms of the game was the referee took no messing whatsoever. Zero tolerance for any dissent. And she actually gave out 2 yellow cards to Bristol City players because of dissent. Now, Jack and Toby, you've done a research piece on the website about abuse in football to referees. Toby, we'll start with you. What have you found during this experience?
Well, just to start off with, it happens everywhere. I mean, you just briefly explained then the differences between the men's and women's game, but also similarities. This referees do get abused everywhere. Men's game, women's game, the youth game. I actually spoke to a youth referee, and he, told me his experiences of abuse he's had himself directed towards him. He also explained to me strategies to put in place to help, prevent and stem referee abuse. He said that especially in the youth games, whenever you play, there's only ever one referee on site, an actual one. He said each team should potentially pay an extra £2.50 or like £4 to add a 4th official, and they'd oversee the games, they'd spot things that would happen, they'd report them, and just would really help stem the flow and just stop referees getting abused as much.
Jack, what do you have to add?
So when me and Toby discussed how we're going to research it, me and him kind of approached the idea of I would look for somebody from another generation of referees. So I actually interviewed a now retired former Sunday League referee from the early 2000s. He was a uni. Surprisingly, most of the abuse came from parents, and he was doing under 13s, under 14s, youth football. He said that most of the abuse he suffered was from parents, coaches, a lot of time from players as well. And he said that the reason for this is because he doesn't think there's any education in football for this. Obviously, if you compare it to other sports like rugby, cricket, etc., there's a certain level of respect that you're taught from a young age to have for an official. Whereas in football, I mean, I've played myself from when I was a kid. I'm sure some of you lot as well. I don't remember ever being told to respect an official. It's just not. It's almost normalised to give abuse to a referee, and I'm guilty for it myself. Of course I am, but I feel like it's because it's so normal in our game now, and that my referee spoke to me about how strategies would be more to educate from a young age, teach these kids that it is wrong, because if they're seeing their parents abusing referees on the sidelines when they're younger, they're going to think that's okay when they get older. That it's going to have a certain influence, because parents do have an influence on their kids. So if we could educate from a young age, I think it can cancel out the abuse. But it's become so normalized now in today's game to abuse an official. It's ridiculous, and we've seen it in the pro game as well. We've seen Tranmere other fans that were arrested for giving homophobic abuse to a referee last year. It's so normal now, and I feel like education for me is the best way to do it.
No, you make some good points about it almost being a culture in our sport, especially in reference to rugby. I mean, you see the top rugby officials, and they are so straight with it that there can't be anything disrespectful towards them at all. I mean, that's how a lot of people think it should be with our sport, and rightly so, I guess. I mean, as you say, the abuse with officials stems from, of course, complaining about decisions going against them, but there's a certain level of respect that in football. I mean, as I say yesterday in the pro game, 2 yellow cards for dissent, and as you say, you've researched all the way down to grassroots, and it is a culture thing. So you think that education could be the answer to it? How do you think we could involve that education? Would that be part of training sessions? Or what do you think, Jack? How could we inform the younger generation more about this sort of culture change?
I think that I know that obviously if you're going to be a manager in youth football, you have to go through certain qualifications, UEFA licenses to do it. And I feel like that should be part of your coaching, is to be taught how to discipline these kids into respecting an official, because it can be part of training sessions. Because as I said, adults have an influence on kids, and if you teach if you tell a coach to teach this to them, if they can teach them how to do a passing drill, they can teach them to respect an official.
Yeah, valid point. I like that idea a lot. I've done my FA level 1, as you know, thousands of many other people are, and I don't recall a word about respect for officials on it. And as you say, if we can start making that culture change and see it trickle through to the top of the game as well, that'd be a great idea. The amount of pressure and abuse that goes on referees can, it's especially nowadays with the introduction of VAR, for all the right and wrong that it has brought into the game. Do you think that the use of the video assistant referee actually does support the officials, or does it pile on more pressure, leaving out the human element of the game? Luke Harris, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it does put far more pressure on them. You see with the Liverpool Tottenham game where they had that Diaz offside. When you hear the audio of it, the immense pressure they're under in that situation, you feel it just by listening. You know what's going on in that room. As you say, I think it's become so robotic that you forget it's almost people doing it. Everyone says, "Oh, VAR is the issue." VAR is the technology. It's not the people doing it, and you always seem to forget that. I think it has made it worse because you see Arteta come out of all this moaning about VAR decisions. As you said, that just going to trickle down to kids playing. They're going to be like, "Oh, I see him doing that. I can then have a go at the referee or the linesman or whatever." I think it's taken the human element of being a referee out of it, has made it so much worse for the officials in the Premier League and across the world with the VAR.
Toby Francis, VAR, You a fan or not?
No, personally, no. I just think, just to add on to Luke's point there, referees, it's got to a point now, referees must hate it when they get a voice in their ear saying, go up to the monitor and check something. I mean, just imagine the amount of pressure they've got. They're looking at one tiny monitor, and so they've got the whole of Anfield looking at them. They've got millions of people watching the TV, and they've got to make the right decision. And because there's been so many mistakes, they're obviously going to be feared doing that, which then overall just hampers the performance to a whole. And I agree, it's not the VAR, it's technology's fine. It's the people using it. I think it's the people upstairs where they're sat in London, million miles away from the game, and just are making the wrong decision constantly.
Nathan, do you have any idea how we could make VAR better in this way, or is the technology okay? Is it just a human thing that is never going to actually get better?
I mean, it's controversial. A big thing for me would be, like Toby says, for example, Anfield, those fans are seeing it in real time, and the referee goes down monitor, and it's slowed down to make it look like it's really, really bad, when in fact it could be nothing. And when you look at offsides and penalty calls, a penalty call could change a game. You know, a goal that's offside, I always was told that the striker has the benefit of the doubt. That's been wiped away. You can't fully celebrate a goal.
So again, the pressure that can be put on people in sport is a topic that a few of us have been looking at over the last few weeks with a number of different organizations. I've personally been working with a company called Enjoy Football in Warrington, and what they do is with a number of EDI groups, they put on sessions that can support them. In particular, the one of interest for me was on Friday nights, they do a mental health session where, you know, people that are struggling currently can come for a kickabout, improve their physical and, of course, mental health by just talking to people, having a bit of fun. It's been something that, aside from the professional side of things that we've been researching a lot and doing a lot of stories on, this kind of grassroots organization that just gets your everyday person involved with has been really enjoyable to look at. I know, Luke, you've been looking at a similar thing.
Yeah, me and Toby went to Liverpool Homeless FC. They had a guy there who they said really struggled with his mental health before, and said that 6 months ago he probably wouldn't be here if he wasn't at these sessions. And I think the thing that struck me was it's 2 hours a week playing football can do so much for someone. And I think that is just so powerful to know that it's these services that are just they run by some random person that you might walk past them on the street to save someone's life from just playing football at a local power league is pretty powerful.
Yeah, completely agreed. One of the things that I've had the joy of doing in the past month is I went to Octagon 48, where Scouser Paul Smith, comedian, had his MMA debut on in the finale of Stage to the Cage, a Channel 4 series that they did. And one thing that stood out to me is in the post-fight interview, the result didn't even go Paul Smith's way, but he was so upbeat because he's had the experience of being able to train and do something in sport that he found the whole experience was worth it. I mean, he said that he's so much better than he was emotionally and physically than he was a year ago when he started training. He said that partway through training camp at times, he even thought about driving his car into a wall and just being done with it, because he then wouldn't have to face backlash about quitting, about being told he was certain things. But he stuck with it. And as I say, the result didn't go his way, but it's one of those things where he's had a new purpose through sport. He's had something to aim for, something to do. And he's quoted that he said that he's changed his life physically and mentally around. Also on the card, we had Shamrock, another Scouser, was supposed to be on it. His fight got cancelled the day of. And then also in MMA this weekend, a huge fight for the biggest star in Liverpool in the mixed martial arts world. Paddy Pimblett is back. He's fighting in Las Vegas, UFC 296. against legend and former lightweight interim champion Tony Ferguson. That'll be on the main card in the early hours of the morning. An exciting fight and another step up for Liverpool's own Paddy Pimblett. Closer to home now, Nathan, you've been looking at a number of university sports. Anything in particular, again, stood out to you?
Last couple of weeks, I've been covering some volleyball, and just volleyball as a whole wouldn't be the sport I would go to, but I've tried it, and I can now say I'm a fan. The atmosphere they get behind the team, it's very bad. It's very it's not like football or rugby. The two teams are very much, evenly matched, and anyone can win. On this occasion, Uni have won, but John Moore's put up a really good fight, and the fact that the LJMU Sport Building was absolutely buzzing. Also netball. Netball is the John Moore's team at the moment. They're on fire. I think they've won 4 in a row. Their goal scorer Martha Harden. I mean, she shoots, she scores. She rarely misses. She's a really good player, and also been involved with the GAA this year, the Gaelic Athletic Association football. And it's just been it's community based. It's a squad of 30 lads putting in the hard yards every week, and I think maybe Jack's dipped his feet into the uni sports too. If he would like to talk about it as well.
Yeah, I've done the netball sevens and the threes as well, and like you say, with your experience with volleyball, netball would not be my first choice of sport by any means, but I can say now that I actually do quite enjoy it. I feel like once I got to know the rules and once I got to understand the game a bit more, it's a great sport. It's very end to end, very entertaining. Big crowd as well. It brings in a lot of people. On the occasion I went to the sevens, unfortunately lost, but it was a great game versus Wrexham ones. And then when I went to watch the threes, they were amazing. They were their goal attack and goal shooter Liz Wilkinson was on fire. She scored 12, 13 goals that game. And I think also with the netball, it took me by surprise how competitive it actually is. It can get quite aggressive and quite competitive in a sense that almost like football and rugby is. And with, I say fans, but the crowd was proper riled up for it because it was a cup game with the threes. It really took me by surprise, pleasantly surprised actually. It's a good sport to be fair, and I've really enjoyed the uni sports.
That's really interesting that you're saying Liverpool John Moores sevens, the 7th team, can get a crowd there of people that are enjoying it and making noise. A 7th team. I mean, that shows not only how people are coming to watch it and support their friends and maybe family, etc., but that shows the popularity of netball as well. I mean, 7 teams and still getting a crowd and still winning games is incredible, really. Luke, Toby, have you been to any uni games as well?
Yeah, I went to the futsal this last weekend, and it was very entertaining, very end to end. It's only 40 minutes of just pure football, small pitch, so there's lots of action. It was really enjoyable, and like Jack and Nathan said, the atmosphere there was also brilliant. I think the whole overriding thing from this is that we can be quite close-minded of what we want to watch, what sport we watch, but I think we've all had a good experience about watching new sports. The attention that it brings, the hype around it, the atmosphere. So it's been quite enjoyable to be watching all these uni sports.
Luke, a final word from you on that?
Yeah, I went to the American football, which is definitely a growing sport in the UK, and with like it being the flag football coming into the Olympics in I think it's LA 2028. It's opportunities are there for these talents because there was some former professionals playing for the uni team, and I think it's really good for the country as a whole when you have universities like ours who run loads of so many different sports that people can get into, maybe something they didn't even know they were good at, and they can make a career out of it potentially, which is I think is great. And as you said, having the atmosphere around it as well just brings a nice feeling about sport in general, which you mentioned earlier about mental health. It just makes everyone feel better, doesn't it, sport? So yeah.
Brilliant. So we will finish on a segment called Star of the Week in Merseyside. We have 3 nominations this week about the stories that we've already covered and briefly mentioned. So the first nomination, Karen Homeguard scored the winner for Everton women, a big header at the back stick to win the game 1-0 against West Ham. The second nomination, Lewis Dobbin scored his first goal for Everton men's, the 2-0 win against Chelsea. And then third and finally, sticking with the university sports, Martha Harden, another player of the match performance from her, Nathan, as LJMU netball team beat Lancashire 63-42. Nathan, who's your pick going for?
I mean, it's massive for Lewis Dobbin scoring your first Everton goal. What was it, 90+2 against Chelsea? So in my opinion, it has to be Lewis Dobbin.
There's 1 vote to Dobbin. Toby Francis, over to you.
I'd also go Dobbin. Huge game, huge moment for him as a young guy. And to come on and score at home, I think it was brilliant for him.
Jack Hughes, who's your pick?
It could be a whitewash here, but I'm going to go for Lewis Dobbin as well. I feel like as a young impressionable boy to score his first goal for Everton in front of a home crowd against Chelsea in a massive game is such a huge moment for him that I feel like I'm giving him a disservice if I didn't give it to him this week.
Luke Harris, unanimous decision?
I think it is going to be. As a Chelsea fan myself, he made me feel very sad yesterday. So for the emotion I felt after the game, I think I have to give it to him. His first goal. And I like Sean Dyche's little mention about his celebration afterwards as well.
Yeah, agreed for me. Huge moment for Dobbin, but also for Homeguard, as I say, winning 1-0 in the league for Everton women, another big result. And LJMU netball still onto big things. Thank you everyone for watching. That has been Sport Northwest News.